Hello and welcome to the Third Sector podcast. I'm Lucinda Rouse.
And I'm Emily Burt. Each week we bring you half an hour of discussion and debate about the important goings-on in the charity world. This week we'll be asking how charities can make better use of the phone as a force for good. And later in Charity Changed My Life, we'll hear how the Bags of Taste home cooking programme has helped one person manage the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder.
But going straight into our main discussion this week, how often do you use the phone to make contact with new supporters or strengthen the relationship with the donors who are already on your books? And do you mix more traditional outreach methods, such as the phone or the post, with newer ways of communicating? Chances are your answer will depend on who you're trying to reach. While over 55s are generally comfortable with the idea of a phone call, a survey conducted earlier this year by the price comparison service USwitch found a quarter of 18 to 34-year-olds never pick up the phone. The majority of respondents within that 18 to 34 age group said they prefer voice and text messages and communication on social media. So what does this mean for charities?
Well, we have two guests with us in the studio to help us try to unpick this. First up is Phoebe Cooper, who is the marketing manager in the donor development team at the RSPCA. Hi, Phoebe.
Hi, Emily.
Great to have you with us.
And also with us is Jack Boardman, head of development at the telemarketing agency Angel, which works with a lot of charities, including the RSPCA. Hi, Jack.
Hi.
So since this is your line of business, can you please set out your stall for us? Why should charities be making greater use of the phone?
Oh, and I think the key is the power of a conversation, the ability to converse with someone. You can really get across a lot of context. You can build deep relationships with your supporters in a very different way compared to any other channel. Coupled with that, it really delivers excellent results. So if I said to you, you could send an email out and half of the people that you send that to would open it. And for example, if you're calling an upgrade campaign, a third of the people that open that email would respond positively. You would absolutely send that email. And those are some of the results that can be achieved through telemarketing. So I think it's the combination of the fact that you can have those really excellent conversations, you can build great rapport, you can understand what really is important to those supporters, but also it achieves great results. And these times where, you know, as you've said, acquiring donors is incredibly challenging. And costly, and also retaining donors is equally as challenging. Having the ability to have that really considered, powerful conversation, it achieves great results and it can do wonderful things for that supporter's onward journey with the charity. And that's where we've had a lot of success, is taking a supporter-led, really quality-focused approach to fundraising. You know, in years gone by, and happily we weren't engaged with this, but I think the telemarketing space is very much seen as a big volume game, call anyone and everyone, you know, and it was very much a bit of a Wild West type approach. I think the pendulum swung then the other way. We had the Olive Cook situation, which was obviously very troubling, difficult for the sector at the time. And then coupled with that, we had, you know, changes to regulation, particularly in respect of GDPR, where, you know, a lot of charities moved to a consent-only approach. Through that, we saw volumes reduce, and we saw charities taking a really low-risk approach to telemarketing, often stopping it at source, to be honest with you. Whereas that pendulum feels like it's come back to sort of more equilibrium in the middle, where, you know, charities are embracing the opportunity of legitimate interest, which can really increase your callable volume, but also within that, making sure that those people do have a genuine interest in the charity if you're going to outreach to them. And in doing so, and adopting a supporter-led fundraising approach where it's about the power of a conversation. It's not just volume, call as many people as possible. And now that volume's somewhere in the middle, that's where we're seeing a lot of success. And that's why we think that charities absolutely should pick up the phone and achieve a lot of success through doing so.
I think that's really interesting because you've given us like a little potted history of how we're seeing telemarketing and that telefundraising space changing over the recent years. And I'm sure COVID also had an impact on that because, well, that was a way to reach people without having that face-to-face interaction that we were robbed of for 2 to 3 years. But as Lucinda said, you know, demographically, there's a lot of change that goes on here. She mentioned the USwitch survey earlier. I am one of those 18 to 34-year-olds, and I'm not going to say where I fall on that spectrum, but I am one of the people who does not pick up the phone. If I get a call from a number that I don't recognise, I always go, well, it's either spam, or if it's really important, it can go to voicemail and maybe I'll call them back. So I'd just be really interested to get your insights on which demographic groups you think are generally like the best suited to telemarketing and picking up the phone. And do you think this is changing and evolving?
It is definitely changing and evolving people's viewing habits. So a lot of the work that we do, and it's true of the relationship we have with RSPCA, is taking incoming calls, for example, in response to television adverts. And now the way that people are consuming television adverts is changing. We have streaming services like Netflix and ITV Hub and so on. People could be watching that on the television. They could have an iPad in their hand and their phone in the other hand. And that is just a real change and shift from previous times where you'd have one television on the wall, and as a family you might watch that together. You couldn't sort of skip the adverts, so you would sort of take the adverts on board and perhaps be more likely to phone in response to them. So that is one challenge that charities are having to meet is, how do you generate leads? How do you encourage people to pick up the phone so that the phone can still be that great vehicle for donor acquisition and for donor development that it always has been? So the way that we're doing that is in lots of different ways, but one is embracing the fusion between digital lead generation and the telephone. We know that social media is incredibly powerful for reaching lots of people across many different age brackets and demographics. And if you can meet people where they are, so younger people will show up on social media. That's when they're watching the TV, we're sort of watching it, but they're on their phone. They'll be on Meta, or they'll be on these other channels. So how do we meet them there, but still use the phone as the best tool to convert people? Because it's great to get you as a lead on Meta, but if you don't actually go on to donate or become a lead, there's very little value to the charity there. So could we get you as a lead, for example, by doing what we call value exchange, offering you something, as a way of showing your support, whether that be for RSPCA requesting a booklet to help your pet with recipes, or ways to support them, or something like that gets you that initial lead, that initial hook and interest, but do that in a way that we can still contact you by the phone, and therefore you'd be much more likely to pick up the phone, even if that's not something you do in your day-to-day life, because you have a reason to. You'd like to get that free item, or you've shown that initial interest in the charity. And that's where we're really seeing that, and we've embraced that, and we're seeing brilliant results from that, is using various channels, whether it be email, whether it be social media, to generate leads across all age bands, but then still use the phone as that great conversion tool that it always has been.
So that's a case of putting a phone number in when you request that booklet, and
That's
then
right.
A little later somebody from your team or from the RSPCA themselves will give a call and see if they want to further their support.
Yeah, that's right, because we'd still want to get your name and address, for example, to fulfill that request. So we've actually, in recent times, set up a fully managed end-to-end model, because one of the things we recognise for charities, small, medium and large, is time pressure and capacity challenges, and also the knowledge of being able to manage generating leads online. Then how do you get those to your telemarketing agency? How do you call them, convert them, and then you need to send that booklet to them? So there's a really full process and a big infrastructure that goes behind that. So we've kind of stepped away from just being a contact centre and really looking at campaigns as a fully managed project. So we work with charities, small, medium and large, to set that up. And as you say, there would be that follow-up call at that point to convert that person, but still to fulfil that request for the free product that they might have requested, or to talk to them more if it's a lottery. You talk to them about the details of the lottery and how they can play and win, and take that person from being a lead to now they're a warm prospect, hopefully going to be a regular donor. And then think about, not just stop that interaction there, think about that we've now acquired a new donor, and we need to maximise the lifetime value and the return on investment from acquiring that donor, which has an upfront cost associated to it. But if we can upgrade them, if we can cross-sell them and you take them on that journey, the phone has taken someone from not potentially knowing the charity to someone that's really giving a lot of support to that charity over a long period of time.
And Phoebe, how has that worked within the RSPCA? Like, how have you shifted how you use telemarketing over, say, the past 3 years?
We've shifted a lot with how we're using the phone. I joined the RSPCA in March of 21, and at that point we weren't doing a ton of warm telemarketing activity. So we had our acquisition, our DRTV, inbound calling, but we didn't have as much outbound calling going on. We have gradually grown our program. And one of the interesting things I was thinking about while Jack was talking actually was with our gift aid campaign, for example, once you've called a supporter a few times, if they don't answer the phone, you can follow up with a text message and just say, oh, we're just contacting you. We're trying to update your records. missing some gift aid information about you, basically. And then they know the purpose of the call. So if there's someone who is a bit shy or not wanting to answer the phone, then they've got that prompt for why.
And can you tell us a little bit more about the gift aid campaign? What prompted it and what have the results been, and what does it involve actually? Is it just a case of sending a text message and following up with a phone call to get people to tick that box where they hadn't previously?
We were looking at our gift aid opt-in rates, and we could see that of our eligible active supporter base, 60% had opted into gift aid, and for the people that were giving in gift aid eligible ways. So in 2020, the RSPCA claimed £5 million worth of gift aid, but a staggering 1 million still went unclaimed. So it's a huge opportunity just sitting there. So we looked at how we've done gift aid historically, and we'd been attempting like direct mail campaigns for conversion or digital campaigns, but the response rates were around 1% for each channel individually. So really not that impressive and not achieving the results that were desired. When you think about gift aid, it's from kind of like behavioral economics lens. It is a system 2 activity. It's something that requires you to slow down and really think about it. It's not an emotional decision, it's a rational one. And so thinking about it that way kind of helps you understand why potentially like direct mail and digital weren't working. But if you actually pause and pick up the phone and talk to someone, then you can have that nice conversation and they can ask you questions and you can engage with them and help work through any confusion. And so we reached out to our supporters who were eligible, who hadn't yet told us if they were taxpayers or not. And of those, we were talking 1% response rate for direct mail and digital. We had a 50% contact rate in that first campaign. And of those, 90% who were eligible for gift aid opted in, which is incredible. From our total campaign for that year, 98.3% of our conversions came through our telephony activity. And the first year, we had £230,000 worth of gift aid income alone just from that activity. So it was hugely successful. And we've, obviously it's not 2021, we're in 2024. 4 campaigns on, our gift aid opt-in rate's gone from 60% to 68%. Just over 68%. So that's essentially a 2% increase year on year.
Do you find it sort of helps you as well in that journey of bringing your existing donor base on a journey with you, helping them become involved in a deeper relationship with the charity?
Yeah, definitely does. And we got really lovely feedback, even from the gift aid campaign. It's that opportunity to connect. I think a lot of our supporters, I mean, particularly when we started in 2021, obviously that was pretty fresh out of lockdown. So it's that opportunity to speak to someone and nice for them and actually not asking for money. It helps build that relationship. Obviously, we are a charity and we do exist thanks to the support of donations from the public. But reaching out and genuinely just updating your records and saying thank you and not asking for money kind of helps build that relationship as well, I think.
Are there any other fundraising channels that you would say are particularly compatible with the phone? I know, Jack, you talked a little bit about Meta earlier and about how to make those contacts. As you say, a lot of people watch TV now with the phone in their hand at the same time. How can we take advantage of that? I'd also love to know about how you are applying these learnings to take that really strategic approach to supporter engagement.
Sure. So I think there's channels, there's products, and there's also teams at the charity. And all of those things are at risk of working in a silo. And the way that we like to try and work is really start from the top. What's the maximum audience available? For RSPCA, for example, there's people that shop at the RSPCA. There's people that support the RSPCA through donations. There's people who come into contact with the RSPCA because they have a pet. That's just some examples. There's a huge wide range. You can be at risk of just thinking, well, my goal is to upgrade supporters, so I'm just going to focus on the people that are already supporting us, and that narrows your audience quite greatly. So when we work with our charity partners, we very much like to look at what's the overall picture, what's the maximum audience outreach that we could achieve, and then try and break down the silos between teams. Because, you know, in the example with RSPCA, we've got the legacy team who, you know, really want to get lots of legacy support in to, you know, meet the legacy objectives and aims for their department. And then, you know, we have the donor development team whose, you know, objective is to maximise the lifetime value of existing supporters. But actually, if you look at it on a broad level strategically, a lot of those objectives align. And the benefit of having the phone as a conversation tool is that you can do multiple things on a phone. You know, so in 5 minutes you could upgrade someone, you can talk to them about their legacy, and also identify, for example, if they want to participate in an event or become a volunteer. So you can have, you know, multiple conversations in the right way, you know, and obviously that might differ from one phone call to the next, but being supporter led and taking that strategic view and breaking down those silos so that teams are comfortable working together and can see that actually, yeah, we've got this pot of budget to utilise, and the other team might have one. If we join that together and also join our volumes together, we can have a greater impact. So when Angel supports that, we come in and deliver some sort of workshop or a strategic conversation, break down those barriers, look at the overarching objectives for the charity and its supporters, and then develop a telemarketing strategy from there. And then talking to your other point about other channels, we're very much supportive of the fact that the phone will be a cog in the wheel. You know, you need to be able to text people to engage with them, and actually SMS contact has the highest open rate of any channel, you know, that there is. You know, there's a huge open rate of text messages. So if you can drop someone a text with a link to the website, there's a high chance that they'll go and do that. Likewise, email, Meta, you know, these are all great channels and serve different purposes for supporter contact. Some are better for, you know, the phone's great for conversion and building rapport and relationships. The phone isn't so good at generating leads at great volume anymore. So that's where you need something like Meta or the, you know, a mail, for example, to get that volume and get that. We almost look at it as a bit of and we've got a model, it's a figure of 8. And you've got to take donors around this infinity loop of value from welcoming them in when they're unaware all the way through to hopefully a long-term legacy support. And you need each channel woven into that step-by-step journey. And that's where, you know, we see the greatest success. So it's very much not the phone instead of, it's the phone to complement and work alongside the other channels, which is where we see the highest level of success, yeah.
Just a very brief question on the supporter-led nature. You've both talked about it. Mm-hmm. How does that work from a telephone etiquette point of view? Do you find that you have greater success with pre-arranged scheduled calls, or does it need to be out of the blue? You've already been in touch with us, but we're just going to give you a call now and hope for success there.
We've got absolute control over our telephone system and our CRM system, so we can programmatically schedule calls at any time of day. So we call between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Monday to Sunday, and we will optimize and adjust our calling strategy based on how people are responding. And to be honest, the way that people respond and the best times to contact them will vary from campaign to campaign and from charity to charity. So we will learn continuously as we go. And we're starting to adopt things like AI technology to really enhance that insight and make sure that, as Phoebe used the term, you know, meet supporters where they are, you know, call the supporters when they're available. If you're doing like a warm campaign like Upgrade or Gift Aid, they aren't necessarily expecting a call. So you can call at more varied times and then optimize based on when works. When you're doing something like Meta or DRTV, time is absolutely the essence, because if someone's just picked up the phone, text in and said, you know, call me now, that they have their phone in their hand, they're a hot lead, you need to get onto them timely. So it varies on the call to action, the type of campaign.
So interesting that there is basically no one-size-fits-all approach. You have to really be thinking hard about it at every level. What are the kind of takeaways that you're seeing from that approach to meeting donors where they are?
Multiple things. So I think stronger conversion rates and ultimately, more successful campaigns, better engagement with supporters. One of the really nice things about being on the phone is we can capture like people's motivations, and you can have that nice conversation to kind of understand what compelled you to start giving in the first place and what's motivated you to continue, and to have those lovely interactions. And then we can continually learn from that. And when we did our upgrade activity this summer, in line with our 200th anniversary in June, we introduced new elements to the script to really feed in some of those motivations that we've learned about and improve that script. Our summer 200th anniversary upgrade calling had a 30% conversion rate, so a huge increase.
And just as a final question for you, Jack, you mentioned that you work with charities of all sizes, and obviously RSPCA is one of the giants of the sector. But do you have any specific advice for organisations really at the other end of the scale, much smaller charities, on how they can best make use of telemarketing and the phone in general?
We think that it's really important that every charity has a strategy on how they utilise the phone, and actually the principles for utilising the phone successfully are the same. For us, the same amount of time and effort and thought would go into setting up a campaign calling one person as it would a million people. And the reason for that is that you have to have that journey. You have to think about what you already know about those supporters, what the appropriate call to action would be. So really kind of the first step is having that strategy. What do we want to ask for? Who do we want to ask that of? And how is best to do that? Seek to learn from your peers, small, medium and large size charities, what works, what doesn't work. Speak to experts like ourselves who can support with that strategy, and don't be afraid to do something, because once you have that knowledge and understanding and a bit of a test and learn and going through those teething challenges, and you've identified how you can bridge the time and capacity gaps, whether that's by doing it yourself, hiring someone to do it, or outsourcing it, whatever you can solve those two challenges, and you can get a really great program going. And then that will help to kind of facilitate growth. It will help to facilitate retaining your existing supporters. We would really encourage small, medium-sized charities to don't just think that, using the phone is for big charities with big budgets. It's for everyone, just like email and other channels would be. So try it.
If you don't ask, you won't get. Right?
Exactly right.
So, some really interesting things discussed this morning. Phoebe and Jack, thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed our discussion with Jack and Phoebe. And now we move on to Charity Changed My Life, in which we bring you the stories of people whose lives have been transformed for the better thanks to the work of charities. This week we hear from Sarah, whose day-to-day life has improved since she joined the Bags of Taste home cooking programme at the beginning of the year.
I suffer with PTSD and I get quite isolated and alone indoors. So my GP set me up with a social prescriber who recommended the Bags of Taste programme for me to do at home. Bags of Taste is a bit of an educational programme. It teaches you how to do basic cooking skills, how to follow a recipe, and how to make good, wholesome, home-cooked nutritional food on a budget. I really like the minestrone soup. It's a good way to use up your odds and ends of vegetables out of the fridge and things, but a lot of it is also one pot cooking, so it doesn't involve much cleaning up, and it's nice to do with family as well. I found it a lot of fun interacting on the WhatsApp chat group with people in my team. So we're all talking about, how we're getting on with the cooking, all sort of in a bit of competition. Oh, I want to do mine first, to put the picture on first. I want to win this. I want to win that. Personally, for me, the main benefit was it gave me some skills, to do some cooking at home as well. And it's also helped me get out of the house, which I have really struggled with my mental health. Because now when I think, I'm going to do one of my Bags of Taste dinners tonight, I have to go out to the shops and then get the ingredients. So it's really helped me get out of that horrible sort of depression slump I was in, and encourage me, to get up to cook, have a healthy routine, get out to meet people. Even talking on the group chat, I still feel like I have a social side. It's nice to talk to people and things as well about a common interest.
That was Sarah explaining how her involvement in the Bags of Taste programme has changed her life for the better. And if you'd like your organisation to be featured in Charity Changed My Life, we'd love to hear from you. All it takes is a short voice message from someone who has benefited from your services, and you can find details of how to get in touch in the show notes to this episode.
That's just about it for this week. I'll be back next week to find out how 2 charities are making the use of theories of change to measure their impact and inform their activities going forward. But before we go, Emily, this is the last we'll be hearing from you for a while.
That's right, yes. Today is officially my last day of work for the meantime, because I am expecting a baby. Hopefully not imminently, but any week now. So the last time I went on maternity leave, recording the podcast really was one of the things that I missed very, very much about being in work, and I'm sure it's not going to be any different this time around. But I will simply have to look forward to tuning in as a regular listener for the next 9 months or so. And I know that hearing from you, Lucinda, from Andy, from Emily and Dami once a week will undoubtedly be one of the best ways to keep in touch with everything that happens in the world of charity while I'm gone.
I don't know, I'd say that sounds like glutton for punishment. If anything, it could be a great opportunity to switch off for 10 months.
Oh, we'll see.
At the very least, perhaps lull your baby to sleep to the sound of our voices. Now that is it for this week. All that remains is for me to thank you for listening, and our producer is Till Owen.